Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm opening the regular meeting of the Granby Zoning Board of Appeals. Everyone being present, I'm going to ask all the members to introduce themselves, beginning with
Ron Herrick, member.
Brian Tromke, member.
Bill Johnson.
Steve Alley.
Rob Chauvin. Dakota Richards.
Don DeRocher.
I'm Adam Costa, Special Town Council.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is reorganization. I'm the chairman pro tem, so the chair will ask for nominations for chair.
I nominate the current chair pro tem.
Second?
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishes to be nominated? If not, then I'll close the floor for nominations and call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
I have no choice. Thank you. Second position is clerk of the board. Are there any nominations?
I nominate
sticky
Steve
note.
Valley.
Okay. Is that a nomination?
Yes, it is.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Yours truly. All right, thank you very much. We're going to have our public hearing regarding the matter of single source services shortly. That's scheduled for 5:10. In the meantime, does the board have any other discussions? Then I call upon member Tromke.
Yes, due to the nature of the meeting, I'm going to recuse myself for a perceived conflict of interest. And I'm going to exit the building too.
Thank you. Recusal is accepted. Any other items that we need to discuss prior to the hearing? Well, I guess we hurry up and wait, Chair.
That's okay.
Just want to confirm to the members, to the new members, that you've all been sworn in.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Excellent. And you received your packets that we need for this evening's meeting?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Did you get one in the mail?
Oh, can't.
Yeah.
And in the audience, has everyone signed into a sign-in sheet?
Simon.
Just two sheets. Welcome, ladies. Do you mind signing in, please? Ma'am? Excuse me, ma'am. Would you mind signing in, please? Thank you. Just a few more moments.
And did you know James Corey was not? James Corey passed away. He was involved with the float stuff or something. We're about to open the meeting in about a minute, and I just want to inform all people attending here tonight that only 5 members of the board will be voting on any matter tonight. It'll be Mr. Harrod, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Chauvin, and Mr. Richards. You're an alternate member, so you can participate, but you cannot vote at this night because we have an odd number. All right, thank you. All right, legal notice. In accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 40A, Sections 8, 11, and 15, notice is hereby given that the Granby Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on October 7th, 2025 at 5:10 PM at 1 Library Lane, Granby, Massachusetts, to consider the following petition. Administrative appeal by Single Source Services LLC of correspondence issued by the Granby Building Commissioner dated May 31st, 2025, entitled Missing Information, and addressing certain permit application submitted for a change of use at 16 East State Street, Granby, Massachusetts. Interested parties are welcome to attend and comment. Persons wishing to be heard should appear on the date and time and place designated above. A copy of the reference petition is on file with the town clerk and is available for public inspection during normal business hours.
Steve, the address was incorrect. It's East Street, not East State Street.
I'm sorry, it is East Street. I misspoke. I apologize. The chair recognizes Mr. Tromke. You can introduce your counsel, please.
Yes, thank you. Peter Goering, Attorney Peter Goering, who's going to represent.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Attorney Peter Durning. I'm an attorney at the law firm Federal Dana.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Do you want a big
I'm
chair?
gonna be all right. I'm gonna be all right.
You look like you're stuck
No,
in.
no, no. I'm with it. I'm with
We
it.
got an extra chair we can rent you. All right.
So, sorry. Thank you for thinking of that.
Is the mic on?
It's not,
It's only for the camera.
we can't try higher.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Is the sound okay? So again, my name is Attorney Peter Durning. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Verrill Dana LLP, and we've been working with Single Source and Winehouse and Mr. Tromke, and I appreciate the opportunity to come before all of you today. I see many of you thumbing through. Mr. McNally, I see the full over inch thick stack of paper associated with this matter, and I do want to report that this afternoon, in response to some issues, we did make one additional submittal that we transmitted by email this afternoon. And I do have some paper copies. Unfortunately, I don't have copies for the entire board, but I do want to get into the record just 2 items. And that is one, a transmittal letter that addresses an issue that was brought to our attention regarding the submission of this administrative appeal. And that is Exhibit 1 to this letter. And as I'll show and discuss later, there is a date stamp that was signed for the submittal of this appeal letter on June 30th. And the date stamp says that it was signed on June 30th, 2025 at 2 p.m. And it was signed with the initials of the administrator for the Board of Health. As we describe in our transmittal letter sending this to the board today, when Mr. Tromke went to Town Hall to file this, the town clerk was on vacation. He addressed Colleen Aberdale from the Board of Health. She stamped it, signed with her initials, and she did that on 3 copies. And Mr. Tromke physically brought a stamped copy to the Zoning Board of Appeals to initiate this appeal. And then I subsequently transmitted a copy of that packet that was unstamped via email. But the filing did go in at the town clerk's desk, and that stamped copy did go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. In addition to this letter showing that date stamp, we have compiled a list of the various approvals that the operation enjoys, including the entertainment and common victualers license. We have in our possession right now the 2024 version. The 2025 versions were approved. The basic permit.
I didn't hear that about 25.
The 2025 versions were issued, but we don't have a copy in this letter.
Why?
We have also
Excuse me, ma'am.
included a basic permit from the U.S. Department of Treasury, the Alcohol, Tobacco and Tax and Trade Authority, a farm brewery license, a permit to operate a food establishment license issued by the Granby Board of Health, a retail food sales license issued by the Granby Board of Health, an Alcohol Beverages Control Commission Farmery Winery license, an Alcohol Beverages Control Commission Transport and Delivery permit, the licensing board from the town of Granbury for a farmer brewery pouring license for malt on Sunday through Saturday, 12 noon to 9 p.m., a similar license from the licensing board of the town of Granbury for a farmer brewery pouring license for wines and malt, again, Sunday through Saturday, 12 noon to 9 p.m., a building permit for 16 East State Street dated July 22nd, 2025, noting the obligation to install 2 awnings over existing entries. The final approval, letter of a final approval dated August 18th, 2025, recognizing a change in use A2 permit, and a final letter of approval dated August 18th, recognizing the installation of the 2 awnings over the existing entry, and the inspection site card memorializing the inspection of those awnings on August 18th, 2025, and the Town of Granbury Certificate of Inspection, date of issuance August 18th, 2025. In addition to that compilation of information, we also have an affidavit from Patricia Fitzgerald, the prior owner of 16 East State Street, in which she recounts her knowledge and understanding of her predecessor, Richard and Gustav Pogluski, and as well documenting her Ms. Fitzgerald's commercial activity on 16 East Street, pardon me. And I have multiple copies of the affidavit, but only a few copies of the letter, but I will submit those around. First to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And again, this was submitted via email, but late in the day, 4 p.m.
If you have, that'd be great. Thanks.
So we're all gonna do that. This one's closed. And again, I do have a few copies of this Fitzgerald's affidavit. And I thank the board. Again, I acknowledge there has already been a lot of paper in this matter. I think the information that I've provided is a fairly elementary level to give you the update of the permitting that has occurred through this year. And I think that the affidavit of Ms. Fitzgerald is also informative. With that housekeeping put aside, while there are some procedural issues that we will address in the course of our presentation this evening, the core issues before the ZBA are fairly simple and discrete. Is Winehouse entitled to conduct its agritourism tasting room in the RS residential district? And there are at least 3 ways or 3 findings that the board could make that would recognize and acknowledge that Winehouse is a permitted use. It could find that there is a prior non-conforming commercial use on the property. Alternatively, it could find that it is engaged in agriculture and entitled to protection from zoning requirements under General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 3. Or finally, it could also find that all of the agritourism activity that is taking place at Winehouse is agriculture under the town's right to farm bylaw. Any one of those 3 would be sufficient to find that this facility is compliant with zoning and could continue. With respect to the prior non-conforming use, in our submittals, including the April 25th request for a written determination to the building inspector and our June 30th letter to the ZBA, we provided ample evidence that this property at 16 East State Street had been engaged in agriculture and related commercial activity for decades. Though it is in a residential zone, 16 East State Street has participated in agriculture and commercial activity through haying and animal husbandry, among other activities. From the Progluskis and continuing with the Fitzgeralds, the property was active in agriculture and commercial activity. The agricultural activity included haying the fields, breeding horses, animal boarding and breeding. The main commercial activity at 16 East Street, was operating dog kennels. While dog kennel operations are generally understood to be commercial in nature more than agricultural, the more the operations involve breeding, the closer they come to agriculture. The Progluskis were involved in the breeding of Labrador retrievers, and the breeding operation takes that activity closer to agriculture. But again, there are sufficient independent activities of breeding Labradors that demonstrates that agriculture was an active use at the property. Dog kennels are a significant commercial activity that provide a strong basis for this board to find that 16 East Street is grandfathered to permit commercial activity despite being in a residential district. The nature of the commercial activity is extensive. Boarding, breeding, grooming, offering obedience classes, taking strays from Westover Air Force Base for a fee. The commercial kennel licenses for this facility date back to 1968. As noted by Mrs. Fitzgerald, the property pulled a license to conduct its commercial activities every year during her ownership. It was clear and evident that the town knew that commercial activity was allowed at this property. As Mrs. Fitzgerald notes, this activity was loud, and commercial clients were arriving at the property at all hours, including evening obedience classes, pickup and drop-offs at the kennels that occurred outside regular operating hours. When Single Source Winehouse acquired this property, it had knowledge and awareness that the agriculture and commercial activity were permitted at this location despite being in a residential zone. Winehouse developed plans to increase the site and the intensity of cultivation activity and developed essentially a farm stand concept to sell the products through Winehouse's tasting room. All of this activity is consistent with the prior non-conforming use of the property in the residential district. As Winehouse developed this concept, it was before the building commissioner in the ordinary course, and building commissioners, both Tom Quinlan and Damian Cody, made early inspections of this property, and neither mentioned that the use being developed required zoning relief. To the extent the building commissioner in his missing information letter had an issue with the language of the 2010 special permit regarding business services or industry being prohibited in the building, neither building inspector had raised that as an issue in 2023. As demonstrated in our June 30th appeal letter to the ZBA, the language of the prohibition in the 2010 special permit is discrete and specific. Under the Granby bylaws, this prohibition cannot be read to bar the agricultural activity at the property or the retail operation that has been developed to sell the fruits of that agricultural activity. Of course, there is further support for this conclusion based on the town's right to farm bylaw and the broad definition of agriculture, which is defined to include agritourism. It is important to note that even with the 2010 special permit proceeding, the town was well aware of the commercial and agricultural activity at the property. The special permit was required for the size of the accessory building. It was not a special permit to approve or disapprove certain commercial uses at the property. Even within the notation by the board on the 2010 approval, that language does not impede the continued agricultural use or the tasting room to promote agricultural activity and to sell farm products. All of the activity was open, and the town was well aware that the commercial activity being planned was to complement more intensive agricultural crop development. In sum, this property has a long agricultural and commercial history. The town was well aware of that history as the property was being developed for the Winehouse concept, and this board can provide a ruling that the tasting room is allowed given the prior non-conforming commercial and agricultural activity on the property within the residential district. Second alternative way or second alternative finding that this board could make would be to determine that this use is permitted without further formal zoning approvals under the Dover Amendment, General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3. The Dover Amendment provides express protection from zoning activities that are related to agriculture. If you determine that the property and activities qualify as agriculture under the Dover Amendment, then the property cannot be subject to further zoning approvals to operate. While Winehouse is still in its infancy as an agricultural operation, because its plants and vines are still maturing, it has significant economic activity generated by its produce. Principally, the grapes on the farm are used in the winemaking process, and hops grown on the farm are used in beer making. As the program develops, Winehouse does bring in juice from grapes harvested on other properties, and some of that juice is from out of state rather than from Massachusetts. But the wine product is crafted, blended, and developed at Winehouse. Beer products are being brewed on site and will soon be available from the taps at Winehouse. And as I mentioned at the top, Winehouse has secured winery and brewery licenses to conduct this activity. In 2025, Winehouse's farming operation produced 200 gallons of grape juice and expects that it will produce more as the vines mature further. That 200,000 gallons will produce roughly $30,000 to $45,000 in revenue. It may depend on what year that revenue is realized or when those sales are booked, but that's the nature and extent of the wine produce that will be associated with this. For the last principal criteria, it is important for the ZBA to appreciate the importance of agritourism under the town's own right to farm bylaw. Agriculture is a tricky venture. There are extreme vagaries of weather, pests, and disease that can simply decimate a crop. Just 2 years ago, wine grapes in western Massachusetts were completely wiped out due to a late frost. Having an additional revenue stream to support and bolster the agricultural activity on the property is a way that many small holding farms are able to get by in Massachusetts and keep those lands in agriculture. Granby recognized this when it adopted its right to farm bylaw and the use in agritourism and the definition of agriculture. The Winehouse operation is a good example of the activity that right to farm bylaw is entitled to protect. And you can find, this board can find, that this operation is agricultural and entitled to zoning protection under the right to farm bylaw. Those are the three primary issues or core findings that I think this zoning board can make. I will touch on a few procedural issues that have come up. As I said at the start and in the transmittal that we made later this afternoon, this matter was timely filed with the town clerk and the ZBA. Though the town clerk was on vacation on June 30th, the clerk from the Board of Health stamped the document received at Town Hall, and as Winehouse's representative, Jim Kromke brought a date-stamped copy of that appeal to the ZBA. With respect to the nature of this appeal, we filed this appeal after receiving the communication from the building inspector on May 31, which we're now referring to as the missing information letter. And in the body of that letter, it explicitly included a reference and the ability to appeal. We received the May 31st letter after making a prior request for a written determination from the building commissioner on April 24th. The building commissioner could have responded directly to that request for a written determination, but he did not. He could have responded stating that he was adopting the prior determination or that giving the unappealed enforcement order, he believed that the property still needed zoning relief, but he did not say any of those things. The next communication we received from the building inspector ignored those issues, but stated a single concern with the 2010 special permit. Either the building commissioner acquiesced on our request for a written determination, potentially he constructively approved it, but alternatively, as we have argued, by calling out the 2010 special permit issue, but not addressing either the prior enforcement action or our arguments, frankly, that all of the activity is allowed prior to the non-conforming use or under Dover, the building commissioner's lack of response is before this ZBA and part of this appeal. We maintain that all those issues are here and are part of this appeal because of the building commissioner's lack of a response to our request for a written determination, but it is equally proper for this to be before the board based on the appeal of the May 31 determination letter by the building commissioner with respect to the 2010 special permit, because that document is only understood in the context of the long existing commercial and agricultural activity at the property. Lastly, it is important to note that the operation at Winehouse is properly conditioned. One of the reasons that I'm submitting the numerous licenses and permits to the board's attention is to provide some assurance that there is a sufficient regulatory framework that is properly conditioning the operations on this property. To the extent there are issues regarding hours of operations or permitted activities, those issues are already currently and adequately regulated under those various licenses for the operation. Most importantly, with respect to the ancillary activities, such as having a DJ or having some music performers, the entertainment license from the select board governs those activities. Regulations of hours of operation, numbers of persons who are able to attend inside the structure, and the nature of the entertainment are all addressed under the entertainment license. Befitting the setting and the business of this agritourism use, this is a positive amenity for the town that promotes agriculture and keeps this property in agriculture. For all these reasons, the board should make a finding that the property is properly engaged in agriculture, that as a prior non-conforming property, the commercial activity is appropriate and can continue, and that specifically with respect to the 2010 special permit, the property is not engaged in any business services or industry, and no further zoning relief or approval is required. Thank you for hearing me out, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Durning. First, I want to accept their submittals dated October 7th, together with the affidavit from Patricia Fitzgerald as part of the record. Without objection?
No objection.
All right. Also, Mr. Durning, I would like you to be able to be recalled back to the podium after other speakers address the topic, just so that you can properly address any comments.
Yes, of course, that makes sense.
Does any member have any questions at this point in time?
I do not know.
None at this time.
No.
Bless you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is there any other proponent to the applicant who wishes to speak? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Mr. McLaughlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, board members. My name is Attorney John McLaughlin. I'm with the law firm of Green Miles Lipton in Northampton. I represent Raymond and Kara Morset. My client is very ill, unfortunately. His wife has taken care of him. So he is in here this evening, but he is here in spirit, and I believe that many of his neighbors support his endeavors, okay? So many things to address. First off, the issue of what this appeal that you're before us right now, I know it sounds harsh, but statute 48, section 15 says it has to go to the town clerk before it goes to any of the other boards. And that simply wasn't done. If you leave an appeal to the last day, you can run into problems. And the statute says it goes to the town clerk first. I've even heard of people on the last day going to find the town clerk at her house or something like that. But not getting it to the town clerk till a week later is seemingly fatal in this. And that would mean that the building could not be used for this project, because that's clearly what was the order of Mr. Quinlan. Won't push that further, but that's my understanding of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 15. Has to go to the building, the town clerk first, before it goes to anyone else. As for the fact that there's licensing that's already been granted to this facility, that is well and good. I'm not saying all the licensing was proper, but the licensing doesn't say anything about zoning. I recently, working with another council, got the first disc golf course liquor license for, a golf course with frisbees instead of balls. But the zoning was in Superior Court for ages after that. They're separate things. You can get a liquor license and the zoning still is separate and distinct. We ultimately got the zoning for the disc golf course too, but the fact that you can get common victicular license, the fact that you can get liquor licenses, the fact that you can get winery or brewing licenses doesn't mean that the zoning is okay. I just want to make that clear. And also, I want to clarify another thing. Making wine and making beer is not farming. What farming is raising animals or growing crops, not making beer. I mean, you need crops to go into the beer, but that is not in and of itself any type of agricultural activity, all right? As for the three arguments pertaining to the appeal, the first argument that Brother Counsel makes pertains to prior non-conforming use, all right? Prior non-conforming use is where you're doing something and then it becomes illegal, but it was legal when you were doing it. And the prior owner had a kennel, even though now that kennel wouldn't be allowed in the district. And that means that there is some prior non-conforming rights established for a kennel, not any other business. There's no case law or statute that says if you have a piece of property that was used, let's say you're in a residential district and it was used for a store, I can't go in there and turn it into a bar because it had been used for a store. Those are different. Your prior non-conforming rights pertain to what you did, not the fact that it was commercial in general. So they have prior non-conforming rights for a kennel and nothing more. Now, there is a provision that says that they can change a prior nonconformity. As this board probably has seen it before, they have to show that what it's being changed to is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what it was. I don't see that application before us, that we need evidence about that. And mostly, the big problem is that your bylaw says that you can change a prior non-conforming use. Your bylaw doesn't say you can change it to another non-conforming use. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to go from a kennel to a bar, nightclub, brewery, entertainment facility. First off, the effect on the neighborhood is significantly different. I can't imagine that it's not substantially more detrimental. Now, understand when I say substantially more detrimental, I'm not saying that it's detrimental to the neighborhood, it's horrible. All you have to do is weigh what was there and what the new use is. And is the new use substantially more detrimental than the old use? Yes. It's driving the neighbors absolutely crazy. It is substantially more detrimental. It doesn't have to be ruinous to the neighborhood or detrimental to the neighborhood, just that the new use is worse than the old use. And I think that's clear, it is. It's driving the neighbors absolutely crazy. And I've cited to two cases that I had to deal with recently, where your bylaw doesn't say you can switch to another non-conforming use. Courts on two occasions have said that means they can only switch to a conforming use. They can't switch. They can't say I'm going from a kennel to a bar unless you had a bylaw that said you had the power to let them go from a prior non-conforming use to a current non-conforming use. Some towns have that in their bylaws, but you don't. So they can't switch from a kennel to a bar. It's just impossible under the law. And I cited to two cases in there that deal with that issue. The other grounds that they talk about is what is known as the Dover Amendment. The Dover Amendment is actually Chapter 40A, Section 3 of the Massachusetts zoning law. I have to admit, the Dover Amendment's difficult. The first sentence of the Dover Amendment has 318 words in the sentence, okay? It is very, very cumbersome and difficult to get through. But to get protection for an agricultural use. The gist of the agricultural use protection is that it allows farmers to do stuff on their property without being hindered by excess regulation from the towns as to the agriculture, okay? As to the agriculture. It also allows them to make certain sales of the products that are either grown or raised, not brewed or winery, but grown or raised on the property. And it's clear from, and I cited to the case law, okay? Two things about this. One thing is what is the big one and what is the small one, okay? If you're claiming protection from the Dover Amendment, you have to have, first off, the use on the property has to be predominantly agriculture. Now, if they're making much, much more money from the restaurant, from the bar, from the brewery, from the winery, from the entertainment, compared to haying a few fields, then it's not. Then they're not substantially agriculture. It's going the wrong way when you weigh the two. And if they do incidental stuff, like things that aren't directly farming, like the brewery, like the restaurant, like the winery, like all these things, those things have to have two elements to them. They have to be kind of related to farming. And in this 21st century, people are more mushy about what's kind of related to farming. So that maybe someone could argue that, a brewery is kind of related to farming. But the important element is it has to be significantly smaller than the farm. You can't have the thing that's there to support the farm be bigger than the farm. And that's what's going on. Presumably, they're making a lot more money from this huge entertainment complex than from haying a few fields. Presumably. That means they don't have the Dover Amendment, that element of the Dover Amendment. The other way you can look at the Dover Amendment is there's specific statutory percentages of what you can sell, all right? And at first, before this case, I didn't know if there were restaurant cases, but there are a couple, okay? There's an ice cream case that I cite to where the guy has a farm, it's a real farm, he's, it's selling some of his crops at his dairy stand, but the ice cream is coming from Connecticut cows, not Massachusetts cows. And believe it or not, that's fatal. This is to protect Massachusetts farms, okay? And they said they denied that. Interestingly, when the judge denied it, he said, if you get your own cows, come back here in a few years. But now, if you're not doing it, you don't meet the numbers, you can't do it now. Same with their wine. If their wine's gonna be ready in a few years, then they could come back and try it again. But it's not there now, okay? And then I said it to another case where a farmer did have a restaurant. The farmer had a restaurant on his farm. The farm was huge, over 100 acres, had tens of thousands of trees. It was an orchard. And it was selling tons of food in the restaurant, but the restaurant was smaller economically than the farm. That's the only way you get to use the Dover Amendment. You can't just say, I'm a farm, so I want a bar. That's not the way the Dover Amendment works, okay? Then he also talks about the right to farm provision. That's in your general bylaws. The thing about the right to farm permission is it's basically just aspirational. It's basically saying, trying to protect farms from maybe nuisance claims, trying to protect farms, trying to allow people to do farms on their little houses. But it specifically says it's not designed to trump your zoning bylaws. So you can't use that to somehow get around zoning bylaws because the actual right to farm bylaw says we can't beat the zoning bylaw. It says it. So I just don't see how any of these things, and also I cited to the agri-tourism is not defined in your bylaws, but there is a legal memorandum from the Department of Agriculture that talks about it, and it says the same thing. It says, if you're gonna do agritourism, the agritourism can't be bigger than the farm. And that's what's going on here. They've got the tail wagging the dog. You can't have a big complex in a little farm. That's not how it works. All right. the other thing I want to talk about is Mr. Cody. Mr. Cody said they can't do any of this. I mean, now Mr. Quinlan is saying they can't use their major building. Good, I agree. They can't use the major building. But Mr. Cody had said you can't do anything. That was never appealed. He wrote to them asking for an opinion, but understand, a building inspector is not obligated under statute or rule to even respond. So he doesn't have to respond. What Mr. Cody did respond and says, you can't use this building, go away. So, I mean, in essence, that's supportive, even though he didn't address the other issues in detail, that is supportive. You can't use this, go away. And I just don't see how we get around these things. It appears that, well, I guess what we should at least ask them are numbers. Ask them for numbers. You know, like, what percentage of stuff that is grown on that property ends up in the wine? What percentage ends up in the beer? And don't forget the food trucks. I did one of these in Hadley with a farmer with 400 acres, and I had to show the percentage of food that my guy grew that went into each and every food truck. You can't just bring in food trucks to a farm and say it's a farm. Those food trucks have to have food from the farm. They're just blatantly ignoring these rules that are in the statute. So I think Mr. Cody was right, and I ask you to beg your select board to please pay Mr. Costa money to go and enforce it. It's still a valid order. It says nothing can be done. I'm not certain why people are doing anything, but Mr. Quinlan was absolutely right. This cannot go forward. The language says that there can be no industry. I've set forth exactly the way your bylaws end up defining industry, and it basically means any business just like this. They got a special permit to make their farm building bigger for farm, not to have a restaurant, nightclub, brewery there. To me, it just seems absolutely clear that I can't see how they can go forward based upon what they're saying. None of the grounds given by brother counsel hold up when you read the statutes or read the case law. I'm sorry, but thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Any questions, Ron?
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other opponents who wish to speak? I'll do Mr. Joyce first, but I just want to ask that please cover points that were not addressed already. Thank you. You have the floor.
I know they mentioned, Stacey with sister order, we just handing that in, but all the names of the people that get signed, went in, Mr. Cody at the beginning. The property brought the White House in 2020 from Fitzgerald, which is true. They applied for.
Can't hear you.
Use the mic.
Okay, hear me now? Okay. They purchased the property from the Fitzgerald family in 2020. They applied for the first wine license in 2022. They were already manufacturing wine in 2020. There was no grapes grown, but they're manufacturing wine. Here's the copy of their bottles with their name right on it. In addition to that, in 2021, they went and got a business license for the wine house. In 2021, they continued to make wine, manufacturing it from grapes from California. They're not from their property. They're manufacturing the wine from California produce. They're not coming in because nothing was even grown then. It takes 5 to 7 years, as was referenced to, for even the grapes to mature, to be harvested, to make wine. And they haven't done that. Also, within the ABCC, we got proof here that the wine all comes from, the grapes come from California. ABC inspectors stated that. And they have a tenant license for the beer from the Drunken Rabbit in South Hadley. Also, and I'll just give this to you, the license they have is the Chapter 138 19B license. That's what was issued by the town. That is for a farmer-winery license. And you can't have a farmer-winery license if you're not producing. As was already stated, minimum of 25% must come from that property, 25% from other farms in Massachusetts, then you can do the other 50% elsewhere. What they're doing, as I stated, and if you want this stuff, you can have it, they're manufacturing the wine. They're not producing it from their product. And if you look at the ABC's licenses, they have the wrong license. They have a winery license. I'll just give you this. This is 19B and 19. This will have a manufacturing license.
All right, thank you, Mr. Joyce. We'll accept the submittals without objection.
Do you want the other stuff, Peter?
No, that's fine, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Your name? Come up to the mic. You state your name?
My name is Joan Brady White. I live at 49 East Street. I grew up at 43 East Street, and the first 5 years of my life were at 16 East Street. It was my grandparents' farm, Mary and Clarence Bray. They sold it to the Progolskis in the late 60s. Anyway, it's always been a residential and agricultural street. East Street has been. My grandparents had a dairy farm and chickens at their farm, and they were there from 1902, I believe, to 1960, I think it was 68 or 9 that my grandmother sold it. Since this wine house has been there, East Street's a busy street anyway. There's lots of traffic on East Street. Since they've been there, the traffic is more and more and more. I'm a quarter of a mile up the street. I can hear the music. So I can't imagine what the people that are closer go through. I guess that's all I wanted to say.
All right, thank you. Mr. Domaraki?
Preferential treatment.
Rich Domaraki, Bachelor Street. First of all, I'm opposed 100% to the ZBA for their approval of this permit. I think it should be turned down for the following reasons. The prior building inspector issued a cease and desist order against a winery. The owner of the winery had 30 days to appeal it. They did not appeal it. So, because they did not appeal it during the appeal period, they could have every permit that's ever issued. It doesn't matter. They did not appeal the project from the building inspector. In 2010, Tom Fitzgerald approached both the planning board and the ZBA to get site plan approval of his property. He had, as you're all aware, he had a dog kennel. Now, the planning board, it's interesting that the owner of the winery is the chairman of the planning board. Now, this is what the planning board said in 2010. They said, for the construction of a garden storage building for the storage of farm equipment. So that's what the prior owner said. That's why he wanted that building, for the storage of farm equipment, period. Then Mr. Fitzgerald went to the ZBA And they said, they hand wrote, provided that no business services or industry be conducted there from or thereto. So I think you have to look at the intent of what the owner of the property was trying to do. He didn't want the neighbors to be upset. He didn't want any loud noise. He didn't want any traffic. He wanted it quiet for whatever went in that building, which I think is important. Okay, I just wanted to comment on the 2-year rule that the attorney already went over. And it's 3.34 of the Granby bylaws. It says you can't use non-conforming use if the new use, in this case, it's a bar, a restaurant, a nightclub, an outdoor entertainment place, is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the previous use, which it is. So my last comment is, the Tromke, Jim Tromke is not a farmer. Okay, it should not be classified as agriculture under any circumstances. And we have all approved, we have the percentages if you want them. So he is not a farmer. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the topic? Mr. Carrier?
Jeremy Carrier, 2 Phillips Circle. First of all, I'd like to start this evening by saying this town has failed us. Many people on the select board, administrator, going down has failed us. The planning board has failed us. Anyone who supported the Wine House to this point has failed the community around the Wine House. The people that aren't attending the Wine House to enjoy their frivolity of drinking and the music and playing cornhole and enjoying their food trucks, which this town never ever had allowed and now is just overrun with. My purpose of talking tonight is to ask this board to please stop failing the community. Stop failing this town. We need to stop looking at the name of the person that has applied for this and his position on the planning board. We need to stop looking at shirts that can say the Wine House. Because my neighborhood should probably just come up, neighborhoods for a peaceful community, and start wearing those around town. Or in another word, please don't fail us. Because as I look around this room tonight and see the joke of seeing shirts that support the Wine House, I just want to say that I personally moved my family from a road, an area that was noisy because of planes, because of increased plane activity that was going to happen in the area proposed, to a beautiful, quiet development. An area that was residential. That if I woke up in the morning to a true agricultural development, it was maybe smelling cow plop in the morning. And that was a beautiful thing. Hearing the roosters at 5 in the morning was a beautiful thing. Hearing cows out in the middle of the field at 5 in the evening as the sun's going down in the fall, beautiful thing. Now we hear music. I don't want to hear his music. I don't want to hear all the loud laughter with the music. When we've approached people in town, we've posted things have been on Facebook. We get, oh, just chill out, go have a drink. Do you think I'd want to support what we want shut down? None of us in the community think this should have happened to begin with. It definitely shouldn't have happened in the building that it's in now, as it's already been discussed. The fact that the building inspectors have not brought that up at each inspection makes me also consider, was the original occupancy permits ever even issued when it was done? Tents placed in order, guaranteed, not permitted 100%. Go ahead and prove me wrong, show me all the permits. This just needs to stop. A lot of my neighbors are afraid to talk. I work for the town. I've been on the ZBA for years. I was chair of the ZBA. And I know that we shouldn't be approving things that do not truly benefit the neighborhoods that they're put in. This has been a long drawn out battle already. If this was to go through further, you were to say yes on any of this, it's just going to continue. We can hide behind an LLC, who we all know is Jim Tromke, and we know it's going to become like a nightclub. The traffic's going to increase, the size is going to increase. What they do is just going to be hidden underneath whatever title they want to call it. But this is an agricultural, and this isn't right. So please, take your time with this and make the right decision and turn it down. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am?
It can be either way.
I'm sorry?
It can be either way. Yeah, I think to be for or again. In other words, I don't have to be the same as everybody's been.
Go ahead. What's your name?
My name is Barbara Berthium. I live at 32 East Street. Been there 10 years this month. I didn't grow up here like a lot of people did, but I grew up in a small town in Central Mass. And so we are direct neighbors. You know, there's a field in between, but I can see everything from our house. And I am really appalled. I can't speak to the zoning, I'm not a lawyer, or any of those issues. What I can speak to as a neighbor, though, in my whole life, one of the things that was important, I grew up in a small town too, that you try to get along with your neighbors. Now, I can cite a dozen other problems that are going on there that nobody has seemed to mention or cared about. But the music, we go out in our yard and listen to it. We like it, and it's not that loud. I mean, there's things like fireworks that some people don't mind shooting off all night on the 4th of July, almost across from us. Nobody cares about that. And I want to address the traffic. All right, 10 years, I've seen the traffic, and I do want to also say I don't know any of these people personally. I'm speaking just as a neighbor and what I've observed. The traffic on East Street has been terrible since we lived there the last 10 years, and I can tell you that one of the worst problems are the huge trucks that fly by. They could not stop if a child or anybody was in the road. That's how fast they go. And I'm outside a lot because I'm retired and I'm around and I'm outside in my yard. We spend a lot of time taking care of it. I love the people that shop at Cumbies and go by and throw their trash out the window. I pick up trash every day in my yard. Well, that's part of it. The other things that we've done, I live with my son and daughter-in-law and granddaughters. We have an in-law. And he's gone, but behind us is a cow pasture. Do you know how many times the cows got loose because the fences weren't good? This is a while ago. Lenny passed away. My son and I would be out there trying to get them back in because, you know, we were helping. We cared about where we lived and we cared about the people and we helped them. So I do a lot of things that aren't required. The people across the street from us, I don't really know who lives there, but I met the man who owns it. But there's nobody in that house right now. Those big trash barrels blow over. So instead of leaving them, I go out and pick them up. So I'm just saying that it just seems to me like there's a lot of negativity, and I disagree. I mean, there's other things going on. People parked in that field and they're shooting guns. I don't think they're real guns, but I mean, there's lots of other noises that are going on. Someone else is riding a dirt bike up and down the road where they've built next to us on the LaFlamme property. So I guess my point is simply that, like I said, I can't address the zoning issues, but I'm addressing it as a neighbor. And I have no relationship or knowledge of anybody that lives there. I have friends over on Jennifer in that area from walking over there. But I just thought, at least I should say that what I've observed, and like I said, I've observed plenty, and there's lots of other issues going on. But I will say one of the biggest issues right now is the traffic is terrible. It's so fast, and a lot of them are big trucks, and I don't think that just started. I've seen it for the last 10 years, so.
Very good. Well, thank you for your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Your name, please, and address.
Elizabeth Carrier, 2 Phillips Circle. My biggest concern is the noise. Like my husband said, and you know, people who say they don't hear the noise are I don't know, tone deaf or something. I mean, I hate to, but it's just very loud. People screaming. I can go out in my garden. I can hear I can hear the songs. So that's, pretty loud. I have a son that works nights. He wants to sleep. He can't sleep because the noise is too loud. So that's the biggest concern. Other neighbors can hear. I have a friend who lives on South Street. They can hear the noise, the music, and so that's, the biggest concern is the loud noise. The music is way too loud. I don't know how anybody can enjoy it sitting there at the winery, but when we can hear it miles away, how can it be enjoyable? I've heard a lot of complaints about other people who are afraid to speak up about it, but they're, don't like the loud noise.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, you're welcome.
There was a hand over here. Yes, ma'am? Your name and address, please?
Teresa Ichihara, 80th Street.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the last name.
Ichihara, it's Ichihara.
Okay.
Okay, and I would like to agree with the woman who spoke earlier that the traffic is terrible. It's been terrible. We've been in that house 30 years, and it's no different. It's always been bad. And as far as the music, I think they have good taste. I enjoy the music, and they're done at 8 o'clock, so I really never have a problem with it. And we live right next door, so we're the closest people, and we enjoy it. So
Thank you.
just so you know, all the neighbors don't disagree.
Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am?
Yes, my name is Cindy Willett. First, I would like to ask the attorney, Peter, if he would explain.
Please come up and give your name. Point of order, Mr. Chairman, all the questions should go through the chairman.
Yes, please.
Be directed to individual people.
Please come up first. Your name and address?
Cindy Willett, 109 Taylor Street.
And please address your comments to the chair.
I would like to know if the attorney, Peter, I couldn't hear his last name, could explain in detail what was the grandfathered law of 2010.
We can get that information for you when he comes back up to the podium. The 2010 grandfather.
I can't hear it now.
I said, we'll have him answer that question when he comes back up the podium.
So he's going to speak again before you vote?
I didn't hear.
So he's going to explain that, what he meant by a grandfather law in 2010?
Yes, I can ask him that for you.
So as far as I know, this meeting here is supposed to be for an appeal. And I want to confirm that the property, wasn't it bought with a deed restriction in 2020?
If you're referring to the building permit for the utility building, yes.
Deed restriction, and what was the deed restriction? What did it say on it?
Business services or industry be used for that building.
Okay, so that was known when it was purchased. So I'm concerned that if that was known and deed restrictions are supposed to be primary, how is this business even existing?
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Yes.
Agricultural is not considered a business or industry. When you look at the 2010 letter, it was business or industry. Industry is the manufacturing of products. And then business, I went up, there's like 30 different items of business. I think the main thing is the then ZBA planning board didn't want a garage put there. A dog kennel is a business. Everybody can say it was a business. There's a question of whether the non-conforming use applies or not. But to me, I think what our goal here, I hear a lot about the entertainment license, but there's nothing to do with the ZBA. I hear a lot about the wine license, which has nothing to do with the ZBA. Our question is, everybody calls it a winery. Is a winery agriculture?
Well,
That's the narrow focus to me that I think we need to debate. All the other stuff, the noise and everything else, this is the wrong board. You got to go to the boards that issue those licenses.
so what is your role then tonight? If it's an appeal for a change of
To
use?
me, I said what my role is, I feel it's whether the winery is agricultural related, if it's agricultural. Everything else is different boards. That was made very clear. The selectmen issued this,
But when the property was bought, it was not a
that
farm.
was for one building.
But when the property was bought, it was not a farm, correct?
Well, this is, we're not going to go into the deliberations about those topics, but our specific goal right now, or our challenge right now, is to address the petitioner's request to reverse the building inspector's special permit portion of the building, together with the site plan review comments, I believe, is part of the answer. Is that not correct, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, that's correct.
And say that about the special permit again?
Okay, the special permit is what you referred to as the 2010 restriction placed on the deed regarding the use of that structure.
But isn't there two separate entities? It's a deed, which is legal, and
Well,
it's supposed
it's
to be,
not to be confused with the deed, it's a restriction on the property use.
so I thought there were two different things. I thought one was a deed, which passes from property owner to property owner.
This is not a deed, this is a restriction of the use of the property.
Well, actually, Mr. Chairman, it's a restriction of use of one building,
One building, correct.
not the property. But that agriculture is not business or is not industry, so anyway.
Do you have any other comments?
So who is supposed to be addressing legal procedures, the courts regarding application processes, things that are missing, things that were not disclosed?
I don't understand your question. Can you rephrase it?
Yes. So for instance, when you apply for licenses like the TDB, the Tobacco Trade and Bureau license, which is the federal license, you are supposed to disclose your legal right for the business.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I think you're getting into the weeds, and that's something, that's why there's attorneys. That's why there's lots
That's
of
what I'm
attorneys.
asking. So the attorneys and judges,
If they want to,
Decide.
if somebody wants to pursue it, that's,
The prerogative.
that's.
But that's not the question before us.
Correct.
okay. So you're just going to make a decision if you're giving a special permit? And
Not exactly, but
And are you taking into consideration regarding the current bylaws of our town?
absolutely, that's what we base our decision on.
So we do have a bylaw that says no bars in residential
What
zones.
we're going to discuss,
Yeah.
yes.
And this is a residential zone, right?
It is residential, yes, RS. Residential, single family, yes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes. So on behalf of everyone that's here to support enforcing bylaws, I'd like to thank people. And I do believe the residents of Granby have the right, if they live in a residential zoned area, to have the residential zone property protected. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for listening to me.
You're welcome, thank you. All right, seeing no other comments, I would like to ask special counsel a couple of clarification questions. Sure. The comments made by Mr. McLaughlin regarding the Dover Amendment in terms of the statements made regarding revenue and so forth, were those accurate statements?
So, through you, Mr. Chairman, so it's a bit more complicated than that in terms of whether they're accurate statements. Let's talk a bit about the Dover Amendment. It's only one of the several arguments that the applicant has advanced, but let's talk about the Dover Amendment and what protections it provides. You've heard many references from several residents in attendance tonight to the zoning bylaw and the residential designation of this property. It's in the RS district, and the permissions and prohibitions in your bylaw for non-residential uses. And you've also heard references to a special permit that issued back in 2010 that is in the chain of title to this property that restricts, at least with respect to what is now referred as the tasting room, restricts the use of that building, specifically prohibiting any business or industry within the building. Well, and I don't want to speak for the applicant, but my understanding of the applicant's argument is that, number one, the bylaw's restrictions to residential use of this property being in the RS district. And number two, the 2010 special permits restriction on no business or industrial use of this particular building on the property don't apply to the property, don't apply to the building, because the agricultural exemption found in Chapter 40A, Section 3, known as the Dover Amendment, supersedes your local requirements. And there's some truth to that. There's no question that Chapter 40A, Section 3 and the Dover Amendment provides protection statewide in all 351 cities and towns to religious uses, educational uses, agricultural uses, and a few other uses that are referenced in the statute. And with respect to agricultural uses in particular, what that statute says is that no zoning bylaw in any city or town or ordinance shall prohibit, unreasonably restrict, or require a special permit for an agricultural use. So that seems simple enough. You can't prohibit it, you can't unreasonably restrict it, and you can't place it on a discretionary special permit. In other words, you have to allow it subject to maybe some reasonable restriction if in fact it's agricultural. And now I'm going to get to the answer to your question, which is, are the statements made concerning revenue accurate in terms of the impact of revenue? Well, I said it's more complicated than that because even in instances where you have a principal commercial agricultural use of a property, and I'm not saying that this property is, that's for you to decide. But even in an instance where you have a principal commercial agricultural use of a property, you're also permitted as a landowner or operator to have accessory uses, uses that are accessory to that agricultural use. And those accessory uses can also fall under what we refer to as the agricultural umbrella. Okay, well, what's an accessory use and how significant can an accessory use be? And when an accessory use becomes so large that it begins to be a significant use of the site, when does, and you heard counsel for some of the neighbors use the old adage, the tail wagging the dog. It's one I like to use a lot too, and I'm talking about the agricultural exemption. When does the tail begin to wag the dog, where you have an accessory use that has become so significant that it tends to sort of trump the principal agricultural use? In those instances, it's not accessory anymore. It's now effectively become a principal use of the site. And when, conversely, when do you have a use that, while it may be secondary to the principal agricultural use, when do you have a use that is not sufficiently related enough to the agricultural use that it even qualifies as an accessory use? I knew this question would arise, and so I pulled my favorite case. It's a case that was decided in the land court a couple of years ago. And it's a case decided by Judge Vey, who's one of the most particular of the land court judges. And he addressed this very issue. It was a case that involved agricultural use on Nantucket. And he was addressing this concept of accessory use because it became the very topic in the case. And so I'm going to read you a couple passages because I think they're important to understand, okay, what qualifies as accessory? Because I don't think there's any question here that this tasting room operation, whatever it may be, however it's described, is not agriculture itself. Nobody's farming inside the tasting room building. It's not being used as a greenhouse. It's being used for events of some sort, whether those events are wine tasting or entertainment, whether there are food trucks outside, whatever it may be. It's being used for something that is not itself agriculture, it would seem, but the applicant is arguing that it is accessory and therefore tied into the agricultural use. And so the question for you, if you're addressing this issue, is, well, is it in fact accessory? So here's what the court said about these terms. The court said that accessory uses have to be two things: customary and incidental. Customary and incidental. And so then Judge Vey described what's meant by these words. He said the word incidental incorporates two concepts. It means that the use must not be the primary use of the property, but rather one which is subordinate and minor in significance. Incidental, when used to define an accessory use, must also incorporate the concept of a reasonable relationship with the primary use. It is not enough that the use be subordinate, it must also be attendant. To ignore this latter aspect of the word incidental would be to permit any use which is not primary, no matter how unrelated it might be to the primary use. So that's the definition of incidental. Then you have this concept of customary. What's customary? Well, the court said the word customarily is even more difficult to apply. Although it's used in many ordinances as a modifier of the term incidental, it should be applied as a separate and distinct test. Courts have often held that the use of the word customary places a duty on the board or the court to determine whether it is usual to maintain the use in question in connection with the primary use of the land. And examining the use in question it is not enough to determine that it is incidental in the two meanings of that word as discussed above. The use must further be scrutinized to determine whether it has commonly, habitually, and by long practice been established as reasonably associated with the primary use. So when you talk about revenue, revenue is one test to determine whether the tail is wagging the dog. You can look at the amount of revenue that may be generated on a site in connection with the true agricultural use, whether it's farming or a vineyard or haying the land, whatever it might be, how much revenue is generated by that, and then compare that to the revenue that might be generated by the use that the owner or operator is saying is accessory, customary, incidental. Compare that revenue generation and say, which operation is generating more? If it's the farming operation, the true agricultural operation, and there's a relationship between the two, then maybe the accessory use is indeed accessory. But that's only one test. You can also look at the portion of the site that is dedicated to the farming or agricultural use and compare that in terms of land area, buildings, whatever it might be. You can compare that to the portion of the site or the number of buildings or space within a building that is used by the accessory use. So there's not a single test for determining when the tail wags the dog, again, to use that adage. It's really a totality of the circumstances that the board has to look at, which is a court would, in determining, okay, is this use in fact accessory to agriculture?
Thank you. I have another question regarding the comment made by Mr. McLaughlin. He referred to the order that was issued by Damian Cody for the cease and desist order. He's asserting that the claim or the order is still valid. Do you have an opinion on that?
I do, and it's a complicated one.
Always.
So for background, and I think most in attendance probably know this already, there was a letter that issued, I had it here, June 25th of 2024 by Damian Cody, the former building commissioner for the town. And what that letter said, it was referred to as a stop order or a cease and desist order. And it said that the property was zoned RS with no known overlay district to consider, that the property had been determined that it was being used for commercial purposes open to the public, including things like live music entertainment, food service, outdoor entertainment, and that the zone does not permit these types of uses as of right. And in fact, that there was no special permit or other avenue for the owner operator to seek relief to continue the conducting of these operations. It did not speak specifically to agriculture. It didn't make a determination as to agriculture. It simply stated more generically that this was a non-residential use occurring in a residential zoning district and therefore needed to stop. I agree with the statements made by Attorney McLaughlin that that was not appealed. And I don't think, in fact, I think that Mr. Durning, Attorney Durning, concedes that that was not appealed within the 30-day appeal period that would typically follow. Well, what does that mean? Well, it can be argued that that means that the owner operator of the site has forfeited his or her right to then challenge that determination on the merits, and that determination stands. And I think that that's a strong argument. What complicates this situation is that Mr. Cody is no longer with the town in the capacity as building commissioner. Mr. Quinlan is. Mr. Quinlan issued a further letter, the missing information letter as it's been referred to tonight, dated May 31st. I think all the board members have a copy of it. I'm not going to characterize that letter because I don't think it's my role to do so, whether that was in response to something that the applicant or the owner operator of the property may have submitted or not. I will say that I disagree that somehow the appeal incorporates Mr. Quinlan's inaction or lack of action, or his silence can somehow be challenged. The law is clear in Massachusetts that municipal estoppel, as it's referred to, this doctrine that municipalities can somehow be prohibited from enforcing their bylaws by virtue of some action or inaction that a town official took. It's not a recognized doctrine in Massachusetts. The law is quite clear in Massachusetts. If the zoning violation exists, even if a former building inspector or commissioner determined otherwise, it can be enforced. And I think the reverse is also true, that building officials, either the same building official or a subsequent building official, can change his or her mind. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what Mr. Quinlan is doing. I don't know for sure. I'm reading this May 31st, 2025 missing information letter, which is really what's before you tonight. That's what's been appealed to you. And there are 5 paragraphs. Each one is about 1 sentence. One of them is 2 sentences. As I read this, 3 of these 5 paragraphs, 3 of these 5 sentences are not zoning related. They're relating to building code issues, Board of Health issues, a request that the engineer meet on site. Those are not before you tonight, I don't believe, in my opinion, because you don't have the jurisdiction to consider matters that are not zoning related matters. Your jurisdiction, typically as a zoning board, is you issue variances, you issue special permits, and you act on administrative appeals, which is what you have tonight, the latter of those 3 things, the most confusing of the 3, because there are no guidelines in your bylaw as to when you rule in favor and when you oppose an administrative appeal. You're effectively acting as a panel of judges, hearing the evidence before you and making a determination based upon the facts and the application of law. But the 2 items that are before you are 2 determinations that Mr. Quinlan made. Number 1, that after reviewing the permit submitted for a change of use, he reminds the applicant that site plan review by the planning board is required. Now, is that a reversal of course by him with respect to the determination that had been made by Mr. Cody a year earlier that this use was prohibited? I guess you could say maybe it is. Why would he then be saying that site plan review is required? But maybe it's not. Maybe he's not conceding that. Maybe he understood that Mr. Cody's letter had issued and stood, had not been appealed. He doesn't say, and I don't believe he's here to answer that question. So you have to take this at face value. The second paragraph that I think is at issue here is the last paragraph. We've discussed it already tonight, and that's that there is this restriction in the chain of title. Specifically, it's a site plan approval and a special permit, both, that issued back in 2010. Notices of both those decisions had this requirement that the building that was then being authorized, what has now become the tasting room, but at the time was simply a storage shed, would not be used for business or industry. And again, I think that sort of ties into this agricultural use question. So one last statement. When I discussed this matter in advance of tonight's public hearing with the chairman, the thought at first was that because there's nothing referenced in the letter from Mr. Quinlan dated May 31st of 2025 as it relates to agricultural use, that maybe the question of agricultural use could be avoided. Maybe that wasn't properly before this board. Maybe it's not if there's a procedural basis for you to not hear this appeal. There have been some procedural grounds cited by both counsel tonight with opposite opinions on whether it allows this board to proceed further. But if we get beyond the procedure and we get to the substance of this letter, I don't know how you answer these questions. I don't know how you determine whether Mr. Quinlan was right in saying site plan review is required and the special permit says no business or industry, without first determining whether the agricultural exemption in state statute applies to this property, because I think that informs your ruling on those 2 questions. So I've come a bit of full circle as I've discussed the matter with the chairman. I've seen the submittals made both by the applicant and by counsel for some of the neighbors. And I do think that you probably have to address the issue of agricultural use in order to appropriately determine whether the determination made by your building commissioner was correct.
Thank you. Does any members of the board have any questions for Attorney Costa? With that said, I'd like to, hold on. I would like to turn the floor back to Mr. Durning and to address some of the comments made, and then I have some questions for you.
Isn't that chair more comfy?
I should have followed your advice earlier. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to come back up, and I appreciate the dialogue and the comments from the public and the observations from Mr. Costa. I think that puts us at a good point, and that we do believe, and it is our position procedurally, that the appeal is appropriate for both the missing information letter and the issues raised in our prior appeal. And I think where we get there, while I think I would agree with Mr. Costa that it's not some type of municipal estoppel necessarily, but the building, we did make a request for written determination from the building commissioner. And he either said nothing or he provided the May 31st letter. Either way, I believe we would be entitled under the zoning act to seek an administrative appeal of that determination. In addition, based on the close and I think proper analysis that Attorney Costa gave, in this very limited missing information letter, it can be read to understand that Commissioner Quinlan is not saluting or not necessarily adopting the cease and desist letter. And in that circumstance, for a property owner seeking to get a resolution of this open question, coming to the ZBA is the avenue that we have for addressing that. So I do believe that that information is before you. As we said earlier, and as we've said in our submittal, I also think that part and parcel of the discussion of the 2010 special permit necessarily involves an understanding that the property was in commercial use and agricultural use at the time. And just to refute some of the comments that went before about the prior history of the property just being residential, in the affidavit that we provided from Mrs. Fitzgerald, paragraph 20, she concludes the approval, that 2010 approval, was granted and there was never any question that the request was being made to support the commercial and agricultural activities at the property. Others were saying that the Fitzgerald's occupancy was strictly residential. I think the record's very clear that that is not the case. I also appreciate Mr. Acosta's exploration of the intricacies of the Dover Amendment. I agree with him that it is a tricky area. One important clarification that I want to provide, though, because there's a lot of question about the dog wagging the tail or this or that or the robust entertainment use. One thing that is important for the board members to understand is that while the entertainment is an enhancement of the experience, bringing folks to the winery to sample wine and beer, the entertainment itself is not a revenue generating activity. There are not sales of tickets for a DJ set or for the jazz combo playing. Those amenities are there to enliven the mood and the experience, but the commercial activity that's taking place is the sale of the wine products. Yes, there are food trucks providing that atmosphere as well. I understand that's a consideration, but the notion that was made earlier that whether or not the state should have issued just a winery permit or a farm winery permit, that they did issue a farm winery permit, I think speaks important. Making wine and beer is not farming, was said. It's not any type of agricultural activity. I disagree. Taking the fruits of agriculture and making it into a product for sale is all in that chain and supports each other. I think those are the main points that I wanted to get to. And Mr. Chair, you said you had some questions.
Yes, getting back to the revenue portion of the activity at the wine house. Am I understanding correctly that the only revenue generated from that is the sale of wine?
There's sale of wine, there's sale of beer. I think they have charcuterie boards that are also sold inside the wine house tasting room. So it's a very limited non-beverage menu that's there.
Is there, does your client have any rough numbers in terms of the percentage regarding the product of the actual farm, whether it's the hang or the orchard or whatever it may be, versus the revenue generated by the tasting room?
I do not have that strict percentage that I can provide to you today. The information that I provided earlier was that at least 200 gallons of wine grapes are being made into wine grapes from the property are being made into wine, and the expected revenue from that is around 30 to 45,000. The hops and the beer product are going in soon, but I don't have the precise historic percentages to provide to you today. I don't.
I'm just trying to get some basis that we can
understand.
measure this. In terms of the first part of the application or your questions regarding the special permit.
Yes.
Actually, before I come to the special permit, let's talk about the restrictions about the site plan approval. And the fact that not assuming one way or the other whether this is a determination of agricultural use or not, because I have certainly some severe concerns regarding that, because that is not part of your request in terms of your petition against for the board. And as we all know, that it would have been certainly a lot easier to decide this had Mr. Tromke appealed that decision back when the commissioner made that determination. But notwithstanding that, my concern is, in terms of site plan approval, is it your contention that no portion of the planning board restrictions on the use of the property would apply?
So we have been working with the building commissioner and have gone through the building permit process, worked with the Board of Health. We have tried to address the concerns. I did state in the letter that we believe that if it would be a site plan special permit, that would go too far. If it is just site plan review by the planning board, perhaps we could be amenable to that. But to the extent it's requiring greater or further review that could go to the use itself, which we would believe would be protected under agriculture, I think that's where we would draw that line.
Well, I would agree with you that the site plan approval portion of it, or at least some portion of the guidelines regarding that, would be appropriate, certainly. I don't think that it's before us to grant a special permit, because that's strictly, obviously prohibited by the Dover Amendment.
Right.
But that's not being asked of us, as I understand it.
Right.
The other question is regarding getting to the site plan approval process. And my understanding that the memorandum sent to Mr. Tromke regarding missing items, so-called, is more of a informal inquiry in terms of trying to move this project along, as opposed to some type of determination that you can't do this or do that or anything like that. I think it's very informal. And in particular, I think that the change of use is referring to the building permit application, which is under, 780 CMR, changing it from a storage to use of A2, which has nothing to do with zoning.
Yep.
And it's specifically building permit question alone.
And Mr. Chairman, we concluded that process, and I included the letter of approval for that change of use. That was all addressed and concluded in August.
Okay, because my reading of the zoning bylaws, it basically states, and I'm paraphrasing, that any issuance of a building permit requires the site plan approval process in whatever form it may be appropriate in this case. Do you have any other comments regarding some of the comments that Mr. McLaughlin had made regarding the other points?
I believe that I addressed the principal ones that I wanted to review. I would reiterate again, and I think the Fitzgerald affidavit supports that in terms of the continuing commercial nature of the property. I did want to stress, because many of his points went to the entertainment use it seemed to imply that as revenue generating, and I wanted to confirm that that was not the case. And I guess I will just draw attention to, and I think, Mr. Chairman, your comments went to this as well, but, Mr. McLaughlin characterized the letter from Mr. Cody as essentially go away, but actually in both that initial letter from 2024 and in Mr. Quinlan's letter, they both include language that says you have a right of appeal, but hey, come talk to us. And, as an operator in the town, trying to do the right thing, Winehouse did have conversations with both of them. And with the cease and desist letter, and again, the invitation to come talk to me and see how we can work this out, it didn't seem like the sort of Damocles was falling that for all time there was going to be this binding determination made. And so there is a nature of the way in which this has unfolded, and I think some of Mr. Costa's comments went to this as well, and the predicament that we find ourselves in is that we are trying to get to a resolution. We think that this Zoning Board of Appeals is the right forum for the determination of that core issue, which I started, and I believe which Mr. Costa just addressed to this board, is the right place for this issue to be decided, to determine, is this tasting room a use that is accessory to the agricultural use of the property? We believe firmly that it is. We think that that is the issue that we wanted decided and to come to the board. Again, as the fellow board member mentioned, that to the extent there are concerns about hours of operation or noise or potential nuisance, as I said at the top, those are addressed from licenses from other boards. But what we have before us and a moment to get this on a square footing is that assessment by this Board of Appeals of a determination that this activity is sufficiently related to the agricultural work on the property, growing of hops, growing of wine grapes, and the sale of products from them. So I thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Could you kindly restate the two points that you want the board to consider so we have it clear?
So as I see it, the core question is whether Winehouse is entitled to conduct its agricultural tasting room in the residential district. And to get that, I recommended that there are three determinations or three findings that the board could make. One, that it is entitled to do so because of the prior non-conforming agricultural and commercial history of this property, that it was well established that this was not simply a residential property, that it could be engaged in commercial and agricultural activity. The other finding I recommend that the board could make, that this use is agricultural and is entitled to protection from zoning under General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 3. Lastly, I feel strongly that the town's right to farm bylaw has some significance, and the way in which Granby has decided to define agriculture to include these types of agritourism or enrichment activities, I think that helps to bring the concern that the ancillary or entertainment activities are really considered by the town of Granby to be part and parcel of what is agriculture. And similarly, I would just add or close with Mr. Costa's notion of what is customary. I think going to a winery and sampling and tasting wine is or has become customary, and that can be understood to be in the ambit of what is agriculture as informed by the town's right to farm bylaw, I think is an important conclusion for this board to make.
So your summary doesn't quite agree with your application.
Okay.
And my question then is, let's see if I can communicate this.
Okay.
This is, obviously, this is a difficult, completely difficult situation here. your comment is, one of the comments is referring to the missing information last paragraph regarding the special permit issued to the garage and storage, and to, the issue regarding no business or industry is conducted from therein. So my question, I guess, is this. How do you propose the zoning board of appeals can change a prior ruling from a zoning board, putting that restriction on that special permit? And how do you do that without making a determination on the Dover Amendment?
So I thank you for the invitation to expound on that further. I think as we've stated in our papers and before, that the restriction in the 2010 special permit goes specifically to business services and industry. And I think it's entirely consistent for this board to find that the activity that is taking place on the property right now is neither of those things. And that the tasting room activity is not a business service, is not industry, is not in conflict with the 2010 special permit. And so those two things can coexist. I think it's appropriately, I would recommend you could go further to affirmatively find that activity is agriculture. But I think you can conclude that the 2010 special permit does not bar this activity because it is not business, service, or industry. And therefore, that could be a conclusion on this application, that the building commissioner's concern about the extent to which the 2010 special permit would be a prohibition is not a prohibition because it's limited to business, services, and industry. You could just conclude that, and I think that would be appropriate. I do think it is possible for you to go further and affirmatively find that this activity is agriculture, but perhaps those are two different questions.
They are two different questions, and my concern is simply this, is to make a determination of the Dover Amendment regarding that question is it contradicts the original problem of not following the appeal properly in the first place. That's my concern. Second, you refer to industry, and the comments were made that the activity of producing wine or beer or anything else, in fact, is manufacturing process, and that is under the industry portion of the bylaw. How do you address that?
I think it's commercial agriculture. I think it is the natural byproduct of an agricultural process, putting that into a product to be sold. I think that is all in the chain of agriculture. I do not see that as industry as defined. I'm very comfortable with that conclusion.
Do any members have any additional questions for Mr. Durnan?
Mr. Chair, through you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably maybe a poor choice of words to use using manufacturing, but I went up, I did a lot of agribusiness. The definition of agribusiness is business of growing, producing, processing, and distributing agricultural products.
Okay.
That's the definition. I read the intent. I read the whole, I don't know if anybody else has read it, but I read the model right to farm bylaw that the Commonwealth put out. And again, that's why I've kind of come to the conclusion, our interpretation is very narrow here, is the growing and producing of wine and agricultural use, and is the tasting room I forget the fancy words they use, in conjunction with that, is that the proper? I didn't hear anybody complain about the grapevines, the grapes. I didn't hear anybody complain about the farming operations. I heard about the entertainment and traffic. I grew up on South Street, East Street. I mean, when I was a kid, there was a stop sign at 5 corners. Then there was a flashing light. Now there's a light. I mean, traffic has increased all over town.
Yeah.
And I don't think as a result of what is going on there. So I get back to what I'm saying is our interpretation is a very narrow view. Is this agricultural or not? I'm not condoning entertainment. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't be there. That to me is the Board of Selectmen that issues the entertainment license. but that's narrow. And so then we say it's agricultural, then the 2010 letter doesn't matter because agriculture is not a business service and it's not industry. So I remember when this came out and that was the intent. They did not want to see an auto repair garage there. They didn't want to see, any type of little machine shop or anything. Because they made the recommendation that it was grandfathered, this area, because a dog kennel is a business. So you have to look at the intent of the original ruling, why they did it.
I'd like you to save your comments for our deliberation period.
All right. Well, I was kind of answering his question about the manufacturing, and kind of a tangent, anyway.
I think it also would be appropriate to have Mr. McLaughlin comment if necessary on anything here,
Yes.
in an effort to help us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I did want to say that I do agree when you are characterizing the statement of Mr. Quinlan pertaining to site plan review as it being unrelated to zoning per se. I think it's more akin to site plan review when you're doing an amendment to a commercial building. By that statement, he is not saying that Mr. Cody's wrong or right. I agree with that. I do agree with that. And in regards to the 2010 talk about industry, your bylaw says, it doesn't define industry, but it says go to a particular dictionary, which I did, okay? And when they use the word industry, they're talking about any general business activity, commercial enterprise, and trade or manufacture in general. Okay? And so you can't be doing any of those things in this building. General business activity, a nightclub, a bar, a restaurant, a brewery, this isn't agriculture per se. It may be incidental to agriculture, but it's not agriculture. It's industry by your definitions, by your own board's definition. As for manufacturing, which comes under the scope of industry, the Massachusetts Supreme Court addressed this a long time ago, 1961, the Harvard Brewing case, where it said that brewing is manufacturing malt beverages. It is manufacturing. So in the same, analogously would hold for wine. So they can't use this building unless they get around this issue. Brother Counsel seems to be saying, well, I want to go back and argue that we can have these three ways around it. As I've said prior, I don't want to beat it too badly, but this can't work as a prior nonconformity because it's not the same nonconformity. It's different. And your bylaws don't give you the right to change to a new nonconformity at all. Now, number two, the Dover Amendment, as you can see, and Attorney Costa, I've worked with him many times, and I think he gave a very good talk to you about the Dover Amendment, and it seems hard to try to address these things without looking at some numbers. I mean, I think if you look at the numbers, they're going to be making a lot more money from beer and wine than they are from the haying of the crops, the haying of a few fields. In which case, you got to start to say, this is the tail wagging the dog. This isn't the Dover Amendment. They can't get around it because of that. As for the issue pertaining to the right to farm, you don't define agribusiness. By the way, you should take a look. You do have farm business in your zoning bylaws. If you want to have a farm business, you can do more than just farming. You can have a farm business, but it says 50% of what you're selling, 50, must come from the ground, come from your farm. They're nowhere near. I doubt they're nowhere. I don't know. They haven't given us the numbers of how much of their grapes actually go into this wine. They haven't given us the numbers of their barley that goes into this beer. Those are factors that you would have to consider. But and lastly, the thing about the right to farm, it says this doesn't trump zoning. So you've got a special permit bylaw, you've got special permits. The right to farm can't touch it. It's just aspirational. Nothing more than that. I don't see, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that this doesn't necessarily state that Mr. Quinlan is trying to overturn Mr. Cody. I agree with that. But I also agree that I can't see any way around this. Maybe if they came in with some numbers, but right now I can't see how, what they presented. And it's their obligation. They're the ones who are doing the appeal. They have the burden of proof. If they haven't given you these numbers, you can deny it. You should deny it. I can't see how you couldn't deny it based upon the evidence they've given you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got one question.
Yes.
So if I had honeybees and I made honey to sell, that'd be manufacturing, not a farm?
No, I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be.
Okay.
Because my friends have honeybees, you
So
just take.
grapes, so taking grapes and making wine is manufacturing, but taking raw honey and making honey to sell
Right.
is not manufacturing. I just want to be clear
I don't think
what your
so.
thoughts are.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, let me tell you this, unless there's a Supreme Court case that says that, we have a Supreme Court
yeah,
case that
but-
says making beer is manufacturing. It says.
Main functions, but anyway, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Is there, anyone else? Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
There was someone over there, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if you're done or.
I think we are ready to move along here. Do you have any further comments before we close this public hearing, Mr. Malinsky?
Not necessarily. Certainly, I'm happy to address any questions that board members may have, but I can also do that once the public hearing has been closed, so long as there's no new information. So I'm available, but my role is more reactive than proactive, responding to questions that board members have. Happy to provide as much or as little guidance as you'd like.
Thank you. All right, that being,
If I may, if we were to request information from the applicant further and we close tonight's hearing, we cannot obtain that information, or can we?
You cannot. So you have an option always when a public hearing process has been commenced to continue it from time to time. With more complex projects, that's fairly common. You have to continue the hearing to a date, time, and place certain. And that provides opportunities for all parties to submit additional information, for the board to hear new information at a future session. Once you close the public hearing, you're precluded from doing that. So you wouldn't have that opportunity. So my advice would be, in that instance, if you feel you need more information to make a substantive decision, you should ask for that information. And unless you're told by applicant or residents, neighbors, that they're not going to provide it, if they accept your invitation, my recommendation would be that you continue the public hearing to a future date to allow that information to come before you, if you believe you need it, if you believe it's relevant to the questions before you.
all right, then, that being said, does any member have any additional questions or concerns that they want to ask of the,
I do not.
you don't?
I do not.
Okay. I do not. All right, then the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing portion of this. And
Hold on a minute. Chair. I do think that the board should be looking at some numbers and percentages to make a better accurate judgment, but that's just my purview on that.
So, Mr. Costa, given the question raised here, is that something that we should not close the public hearing for and continue?
If the board believes, I mean, the board acts through its majority, so you've got one member who made that request. The other members can take that into consideration and support that request for additional information. And if you want to support that request, then you would ask the applicant to grant a continuance. You do have a limited time frame within which to act on an application for an administrative appeal. Unlike some other areas of the law, like special permits, that time frame, that clock, so to speak, starts to tick on the moment that the application has been submitted. You're already quite a ways into that time frame, so you would just want to be certain that you get an appropriate extension from the applicant to do that. But yes, if that's the board's desire, then yes, you would ask for the applicant to grant a continuance and extension of applicable deadlines, and you would want to be specific about what information you're expecting be produced so you can make the most of your continued public hearing.
Then let me go ahead, sir.
I have to agree with you. I think I'd like to see some numbers to see what the balance is or what the usage of the property is for. And also, I'd like to take and continue so I can read this. I didn't get this packet of information until 7:30 this morning.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, I think it's only fair to everyone, not just the people in general, but the
So
whole town.
let us poll the board here regarding requesting additional time to obtain revenue numbers or other supporting documentation regarding the supporting the agricultural use, accessory use. Is that something you're in favor of, Ron? Mr. Johnson?
No.
No? No. No? I'm going to say yes, because I asked the question originally and of the witness. So then, in that case, I'm going to ask the petitioner to grant a extension so that we can obtain that information. Is there anything else we need to ask of the petitioner?
No, I mean, I think what I would recommend the board do is determine the date to which it will continue the public hearing. And then however many days exist between now and then, extend whatever the time frame may be, which doesn't end today, extend it by that number of days so you're on equal footing as you are at tonight's meeting. But you would first have to determine when you'd continue the public hearing before we can make that calculation.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, isn't there a timeline that it has to be set within like 14 or 21 days or something?
Well, that's sort of my point. So the deadline is you have 100 days as a board from the date of submittal of the application to vote, and then an additional 14 days beyond those 100 days to file your decision with the town clerk's office. You're not at day 100 now. I would have to do the calculation, but you're just at about 65 days.
Okay, so we got.
So you're over 65 days. And so my recommendation would be that you determine when your continued public hearing is going to be, and then extend the deadline by at least as many days as exists between today and that date, if not longer, if you require additional time to craft the decision.
Let me ask the question of the petitioner first, that are you amenable to extending the deadline so that we can obtain that information?
Yeah, we can read it.
Okay. How long do you think it would take you to compile that information?
I would say at a minimum 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Mr. Costa, are we required to do a time and date certain at this point?
You are. You have to choose a time and date as well as a location certain for the continuance. And if for whatever reason the applicant hasn't submitted the information, you always have the ability to convene that meeting and immediately continue it to a future date. But you do need to choose a date and time certain for the benefit of the public, because they won't receive further notice. They got a notice of today's public hearing in the mail. If they're abutters that qualify as abutters or abutters to abutters within 300 feet, they won't get further notice of the continuation, which is why you have to announce the date and time and location tonight.
All right, then in that case, I suggest everybody pull their calendars out if they can.
Mr. Costa, what would you recommend we seek for documentation from the applicant for the percentage of farm versus winery?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the two most commonly cited tests are land or building area, a comparison between the portion of the property or the buildings in the property dedicated to true agricultural use versus the portion of the land or buildings that are dedicated to something that is non-agricultural but is alleged to be accessory to the agriculture. So I think to the extent that the applicant is able to provide those calculations, I do recall, just because I've been involved for a number of months now, that there was at least a diagram that had been submitted in one of the earlier letters by Attorney Durning, I think sent to if not the building department, then maybe the select board, that had shown portions of the site that were dedicated. But, calculations to accompany that would be helpful. And then, of course, the revenue test that's been cited to what revenue is generated. And I think that, we need to be clear. My recommendation to the board would be to ask the applicant to be clear. When we talk about revenue related to the haying of the fields, revenue that might be related to other true agricultural uses, and some specificity as to what those other agricultural uses are, revenue associated with the tasting room, and then what aspect of the tasting room. Because in my mind, there's a difference between, for example, the sale of wine from the tasting room, which might be from grapes grown on site or manufactured on site, and compare that to a charcuterie board, for example, that is not being created through anything that has been manufactured or sourced on site. So I think the more specificity you have, the better position you're in to have to be able to perform that calculation and determine what the principal use is, what the accessory use is, and whether that relationship exists.
Mr. Go ahead.
Chair, could I add one more suggestion that I think another calculation that would be helpful if you see the amount of materials that were grown on site that actually go into the elements, the things that are sold on site.
Very
You know,
good.
Percentage-wise.
Thank you.
Like when you're drinking wine, is there 0% variable grapes in there, or is there 20%? Something along that, and I think what else would be helpful?
Are the suggestions in terms of the breakout of the data clear to you?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with,
I didn't think you would.
but, we will work to address them.
All right. May I propose the date of October 22nd at 5 p.m.? Can everyone check their calendars to see if they're available on that date?
22nd?
22nd?
I'm good. They may not be good. May be out of town.
You'll be out of town? Ron, is that good for you? Are you out of town the whole week?
22, 23, 24, yeah.
Then let's also consider the 20th. Does that work for you? No, I can't win here.
Legion meetings.
How about the 29th? How does that work for everybody? October 29th?
I can make that happen.
That works.
I'm not available, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
October 27th?
The only day I'm available the week of the 27th would be on the evening of the 28th. I do have availability the following Monday and Tuesday, the 3rd and the 4th. Or any time the week after. I realize we're getting a ways out as we get into mid-November, but unfortunately it's special town meeting season, so it's busy.
No doubt.
November 3rd works for me.
Can you run quick numbers on where we're at currently? Do the time frame?
I can, sure.
Do you have any suggestions there?
I have a conflict on the 3rd. Most of the others, I could probably by either straight out or moving something.
November 5th? We're gonna have to pick a day here that works.
Yeah. Well, November 5th works for me.
Works for me.
Dakota?
Was I the only one not in for the 20th?
No, I'm not either.
Okay.
No.
But I'm also not in for the 5th.
Okay. I'm open for suggestions here.
So the challenge, if I could, Mr. Chair, with this is the applicant should also be afforded the opportunity to request a continuation with a full board. I mean, part of the challenge of an administrative appeal is it requires a super majority vote, meaning 4 of 5 members. So if you lose a member, then effectively you're putting an applicant in the position where they need a unanimous vote of the remaining members, and that's tough to do. So I think it is important that all board members be present.
Appreciate that. Yes, thank you.
Did we already do October 23rd? Shoot that one out there?
I am available on that night.
You are or not?
I am.
I think Rob was
Okay, we got one.
You're out.
It's on it.
No, he's out on the entire week.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And the 27th was a no-go, right? You guys get more of a life than I got.
We're doing our best, Mr. Troppy.
Are you guys hard pressed as an applicant for the 2-week deadline or time frame needed?
Well, we gotta be careful. We gotta be outside. We can't be outside of that 114 days. So we got-
Through you, Mr. Chair, you're going to get an extension. So I just did the quick math, and part of the challenge here is the letter that was submitted by Attorney Durning was submitted on June 30th, and that was the letter that purported to be the appeal. It was not included with that letter was not the traditional application form that is submitted to the board. So are we calculating the 100 days from the date of submittal of that letter or the later submittal of the form, which only came in a couple of weeks ago? If we calculated from the original letter, which as your attorney, I'm going to tell you, be cautious and do that, you're at day 99 today.
Okay.
So regardless, you're going to seek an extension, and the law is clear. If the applicant assents to the extension, then that extension's valid so long as it's in writing and it gets filed with your town clerk's office. And you would want to do that tomorrow. But the applicant can extend by 10 days, the applicant can extend by 110 days.
Okay, so we're not gonna get into so I don't know if we should just, so like December 17th, I mean, that's way far ahead. I mean, seems like we shut the hell out of October and November already.
Just to pick up on the point of Mr. Costa regarding the June 30th submittal, which is a point that the board will make a finding on that regarding the timeliness of that application. However, I think the more significant point is as he pointed out, as attorney pointed out, is the official application is dated 9/24.
Okay. And that's why through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not conceding that we're at day 99. I'm just saying to be cautious, we should act as if we are. I might suggest, I know that it's a ways ahead, but the applicant indicated, typically when I hear an applicant suggest that it requires maybe a couple of weeks to submit additional information, you're going to want to all process that information once it's been received. You're going to want to provide that information, it's a public record, to the neighbors and to the neighbors council who's going to want to process it. I wouldn't be surprised if we have more correspondence accompanying that, both from Attorney Durning and from Attorney McLaughlin. So if it's going to take 2 weeks just to get that information, you probably want to push this out 3 to 4 weeks anyway to allow that process to play out. So we could go out to the week of November 10th. I can do it the 10th, I can do it the 11th, I can do it the 12th. We could even go to the following week if there's availability. That's a full 4 weeks from now, but.
I can do November 10th.
I can do November 10th.
10 works for me.
Do we have a winner?
Is that fine with you? Mr. Tromke? Is that good for you?
That's good for me.
Then we will recess this meeting until November the 10th at 5 p.m.
And Mr. Chair, just want a confirmation from the applicant that the applicant will grant an extension of the deadline at least through, I would say 72 hours beyond the meeting on the 10th to provide opportunity to then file whatever needs to be filed. So that would be 3 days. So through the 13th of November, 14th of November, excuse me.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, through you, do we need to make a vote, have a vote on that we're continuing it, or just?
You do need to vote the continuance. I wanted to jump in before the vote just to get that on the record.
Okay.
We heard yes, so that's okay. I would suggest that the chair provide something in writing to the applicant tomorrow to allow that to be filed with the town clerk to confirm the extension's been granted.
With that being said, I make a motion to continue this hearing November 10th at 5 p.m. at the current building.
One question. I didn't understand what Attorney Costa was saying. Is the order going to be that the submission of all the numbers comes in before the hearing so that people get a chance to see it before the hearing?
Yes, he said that would be
Will there be a
within 2.
specific date or some kind of time?
It's up to the chair.
So, yeah.
Modify your motion.
Yeah, sure.
to include Chairman. I'll
Withdraw that motion and all. So today is the 7th. The 25th, that's 2.5 weeks, but there's weekends and stuff. And our November 10th, does that give enough time to get everything, the 25th to the 10th?
I believe it would
Another
be.
2 weeks,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
So my motion is to continue this hearing November 10th at 5 p.m. I believe this is what, 1 Library Lane?
Correct.
And that the requested materials be received by October, the date I hear, October, looks like October 27th.
25.
Yep,
Is it,
Could we make that the 28th, please?
28th. Yeah, I don't think 1 day is gonna make a difference.
and that is agreeable with you, Mr. Trump? Yes. All right, is there a second to that motion?
Do we outline what we're looking for now or later?
So if the board wants to provide additional detail, I mean, I think that we did sort of work through it and the applicant heard it, but if there's additional detail, the more the better in terms of what you're anticipating receiving by that deadline.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. The reconvened meeting will be November 10th, 2025 at 5 PM in this building. All right, then we're in recess. Thank you all for joining us this evening.